Good evening. I'm the Vice Chair of the City of Saginaw Planning Commission. This is a regular meeting of the City Planning Commission. When the petition or special land use or site plan approval request in which you are interested is called, please come forward to the podium virtually. Give your name and address to the secretary for the record. After the appellant's presentation, others may comment. The meeting is videotaped. It is important that only one person speak at a time and the audience observe respect for the speaker. An affirmative vote of the majority of the members present is necessary to grant a petition for site plan approval. Recommendations on all petitions made by the commission are then forwarded to the City Council. Are there any questions? If there are none, the secretary will call the roll in the first item of business.
Thomas Braley, Brenda Moore,
It's Saginaw at home.
Fred Zawerko, absent. Fenobia Dallas,
Present, Saginaw City.
Robert Hanley,
Present at home in Saginaw City.
Floyd Clark,
Present, also at home in Saginaw City.
Jack Nash,
At home, Saginaw, Michigan.
Yolanda Jones,
Present at home in Saginaw, Michigan.
and Jim Nightingale is excused. All right, Mr. Vice Chair, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. First order of business tonight is approval of the minutes of the August 25th, 2020 meeting of the Planning Commission. Is there a motion for approval?
I move the minutes from August 25th meeting be approved.
Brenda.
Is there any, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, modifications? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The minutes for the August 25th, 2020 City Planning Commission have been approved. Next order of business is adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved, Brenda.
Support, Jack.
Any reservations, any questions? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The agenda has been approved for tonight's meeting. First item of new business is case J20-0040, site plan review for the Clark Station at 1607 South Michigan. Is there somebody here to speak to that case?
Yes,
Please state your name and address, please.
my name is Derek. I'm Derek Pavlo. I'm with Austin and Associates. I'm located here at 3085 Bay Road, Saginaw, Michigan.
Okay, proceed. What comments do you have?
So we're here to get approval for a renovation and minor site we're here to get approval for renovations to the facade of the building, a small addition, the introduction of a cooler, and some site modifications to the site.
There are no changes to the pump situation. You have two islands with one pump on each island, is that correct?
Yes.
And there's no change there?
No, there's no changes there.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
I have a question regarding the parking. I think everyone knows I have this question. I'm trying to find out if that needs to be resolved further. You're proposing no additional parking, is that correct?
Based on our count, we're coming up with a total of number 7 car parking spots for the site.
You're saying that's what you have now, is that correct?
Yeah, we had, well, I mean, the previous count was 6 with a 1 barrier free. So technically, if you look at it, the same, yes.
All right. Thank you.
So Bob, I got a question, Brenda,
Mhm.
for Derek. Derek, so let me understand this. All you want to do, well, in reading my notes, you just want to improve the look of the building. Pumps will stay the same.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, it's my understanding there's actually an addition as well. So we got to be careful. There is an addition, which increases the footprint of the building.
Okay, but at the same time, we added 1 spot to where it was 6. Now Derek said it's 7. So
I don't think that's correct. I think it was always 7, but we can clarify that.
okay. Oh no, I see it down. It's in our notes. It's in our notes at the bottom. It's like a foot. Well, it's not a footnote, but it's there. Okay.
I'll reserve the rest of mine to discussion.
Is there a motion for approval of the site plan?
This is Fenobia Dallas. I move we approve the project J20-0040 site plan review of an expansion of building on 1607 South Michigan Avenue.
Brenda, second.
Thank you. Time for discussion now.
If I may, I
Yes, sir.
believe we've already established that the requirement by the ordinance is for 14 spaces, not 7. I like the proposal. I'm not against the improvements to the structure. My problem is the one of the parking ordinance. Do we need a zoning waiver or exemption so that this can be done with less than the required number of parking spaces?
Mayor, would you explain why, I did follow some of this back and forth between you and Mr. Gallen. Your number 14 is derived how?
The ordinance requires 2 for the employees and 1 for the manager. That's 3. It requires the space for someone who is using the pump plus 4. And there's 2 per island, and that's 2 islands. So that's 10 just for the island, just for the 2 islands. 4 plus 1 for each. 5 per island. 2 islands is 10 plus 3 is, well, it's 13, not 14. I'm sorry, 13. That's the ordinance. Now, if Mr. Gallen can correct me, I thought it's okay, but it's my understanding, his calculation is that it is that number. But that raises the question then, is it a zoning waiver or exemption that is required in order to allow this to happen without the ordinance's required number of parking spaces?
And maybe an additional question for Mr. Gallen. If that's the case, would it be true then that the current parking spaces available don't match what's in the current zoning ordinance? So has this perhaps already been reviewed from a standpoint of if it's, regardless of the site plan review being before the planning commission at the moment, it doesn't sound like the parking spaces currently meet the zoning code. So was this possibly reviewed on a prior occasion?
Yeah, this was reviewed when they first opened that parking lot. It was reviewed, but I don't think the parking lots were an issue at that point. But they're landlocked. There's nothing else they can do. They can't buy the lots around there, so they're landlocked.
I'm not opposed to the project. My problem is it has to be done properly. And if it requires a zoning exemption, then that should be done so we can do it properly. That's what I'm proposing. We don't want to bypass that requirement if it is required.
If I may, the way that I think that you have to look at this is from the intent. So if the parking standard requires that you have 4 spaces per island, the island per se would depend upon the size of the island. So for example, if you drive to Tittabawassee Road out to Meyer, they have 3 pumps per island and they only have 2 islands. If you would use our standard, it would be the same number of parking spaces for that Meyer gas station as they would be for this gas station. The way I look at it is the intent is to provide 1 parking space per person that's at a pump. So you can service 4 individuals because there are 2 pumps there, 1 on each side. And so therefore, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of having 1 additional parking space per pump as the intent of that standard. I think that that's the intent of that standard, and that's the way I read it.
If I may, that's maybe what you can interpret as the intent, Mr. Gollum. That's not what the ordinance says. It clearly says a minimum of 4 waiting spaces per island in addition to vehicles actually being serviced. That means 5 per island, not 1 or 2. The issue becomes, yeah, we may need to change our ordinance, but it isn't changed now. So with the ordinance in place, the intent doesn't matter. What has to be done is that there's a process, and that means a waiver or zoning exemption, then we have to have that in order to grant a request. And as far as I know, we don't have it, nor we've had a referral to it. I think it would be subject to the requirement that the ordinance be followed or that there be a waiver to allow this intent, as you express it, to happen. That's all I'm saying is that we're not, if we approve this, we have granted something that is directly contrary to the ordinance, and that's a terrible precedent to set.
This project is for a very small addition and renovations to be made to the building that has nothing to do with the number of pumps. So I think we're maybe diving too deep into the parking issue because the addition is going to be offices and a cooler, which does not require additional parking.
Well, and that's why I brought up the question of the parking situation exists regardless of this project. And so that's why I'm questioning whether in past developments and past renovations at this particular site, when the site was initially approved, did the parking situation predate the parking requirements adopted by the zoning? I guess is there history here where that renders the parking situation moot because it's already been dealt with?
Those are legitimate questions. We just don't have the answers. And a planning commission's job is to do the job properly.
I recall the original site plan on this particular gas station. It seemed to me that the major issue there was a privacy wall, a fence behind the place, because there were residences. Somebody had, I think, in fact, had an above-ground swimming pool just outside the limits of this property. I don't recall any discussion about parking.
There was no discussion about parking at that issue. I was at that meeting. There was no discussion about parking.
So, Mr. Nash, I heard you say that it's a deadlock and that because of residential or the surrounding areas, they can't get any more parking space, period, because of where it's at.
You would have to buy some property around it. I don't think they can meet the requirements. I think it's impossible to meet those requirements that are in the zoning with the property that they have now.
I agree. That's why it needs the waiver.
So in the original plan, was it wavered?
I don't know. How many, I do not know how many parking places are there now? Or could this be grandfathered in from that gas station's been there for quite a while?
That's where I was going. Could we not grandfather it in? Because it's been there for so long.
These are all the questions we do not have answers to, and I'm perfectly happy if it's grandfathered because the ordinance was adopted afterwards, then fine. If it was adopted before and the planning commission didn't approve it properly then it needs to be addressed now. Again, it's simply a waiver process. And we haven't asked that they seek a waiver, and that's what we should do if it hasn't been grandfathered.
Cassie, Bob, can you help us on that?
Sounds to me like we need a motion.
Well, you have one.
Well, you got one motion on the floor.
Yeah.
This is Sylvia Dallas. I move to table my motion until our assistants can give us more confirmation or more clarification on the issue of whether we need to grandfather parking, whether we need to go to the Board of Appeals on Zoning and get some type of variance. We need more information before we can vote on this motion, so I move to table my motion.
I support that.
Any discussion on this last motion? I'm just wondering if the simplest thing to do is to accede to the mayor's suggestion that we approve the site plan with the proviso that a waiver is sought for the parking situation.
And just for clarification, it would be a motion to postpone. A motion to table only tables something to the end of the current meeting. A motion to postpone pushes it back to the next.
Thank you. I stand corrected. I move to postpone this motion.
I second it.
Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion made by Commissioner Dallas signify by saying aye.
To postpone, this is the postponed one? Because she made two.
Yes, the postpone. Yes, right.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion to postpone has been granted. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is case J20-0041, urban tennis courts located at the current or the former Garber Tennis Courts at the bounded by Ford Knee and Ezra Russ Drive. Is there somebody to speak to that issue?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, Jay Wheeler, William Kibbe Associates, engineer. I'm speaking from my office on Washington. So the proposal before you is to, most of you are familiar with the area, the Garber Courts that have been in the Celebration Square area for many years. There's an effort on the part of the Youth Tennis Foundation, Urban Tennis Foundation, to reconstruct the courts and add some additional pickleball courts. I don't know if we have any pickleball players in the crowd tonight, but that's kind of a thing that's taken off. And so we will have 8 pickleball courts in addition to 8 tennis courts. And in addition to that, there'll be a small building that will house a training room, some restrooms, storage, and an office for the one person that would be there to man the courts. And the lighting, we have lighting designed. It's subject to funding, the full lighting of the courts, but it would be more of a sports lighting type arrangement, so that in the shoulder seasons, when it does start getting dark earlier, or dark later in the morning, you'd still be able to play tennis under the lights. So it's a great addition to the city of Saginaw, and we look forward to your comments and eventual approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission or any other speakers on this issue?
I do have a couple renderings that Jay sent over, so I'll share my screen so you guys can see them because they're really nice. Hopefully I'll share my screen. There we go.
Yeah, so this is, that first one was kind of looking to the north from the drive and from the parking, and so that would be the new building. And you notice it is elevated. We are in the floodplain here. So Michigan Building Code says that any new buildings in the floodplain have to be finished floor elevated to 1 foot above the base flood elevation. So that's why you see several steps up into the building. But we also have around the other side, if you flip to the next one, Cassie, we have a ramp there that brings people from the sidewalk up that ramp and onto a platform and into what would be the north side of the building. So there you're kind of in the court, you're looking south. So those are the pickleball courts, hence they're smaller and less stripes. And then that's kind of a bird's eye view from up above, kind of looking from the entrance at Fordney, off Fordney towards Ezra Rust. And if we were to back out a little further, you would see the Anderson and Richmond Center in the background, which is just beyond those trees there to the top of the screen. So this kind of gives you a better overall sense of the project and the fencing that would go around the courts and the courts themselves. Again, there's 8 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts in addition to the new building that would house the training facilities and restrooms. We even tried to, with the landscaping there, pick some landscaping that simulated, they're called globe arborvitae. They're like a small sphere, so they kind of represent the balls from the tennis and pickleball. So we have the rest of our team, Brian Keeler from Spence. Spence will be the construction manager on the project, a longtime Saginaw construction management firm. And Farrington Douglas, he's one of the developers of the project and with the Urban Tennis Foundation. And so it's a great thing for the kids to get them into tennis. And I don't know, Farrington, did you want to say a couple words about the project?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. No, I'm just really here to support Jay and the project. We've been working on it for several years, and we do appreciate working with the city and providing us the property, and there are a few gentlemen who were there cutting trees or trimming after hours, and when we're there, we've just established just a nice relationship, and sometimes we're there in the mornings and the guys come through to take trash and things like that, but for the most part, we're excited, and we truly believe that this area will certainly become very, very popular with the pickleball taking the primary lead. But we have some great plans for future tournaments and it's handicap accessible, and just looking forward to keeping things moving forward.
Yeah, it's a big investment in the city of Saginaw by this foundation.
Barrington, sorry, I missed it. Who are you with?
Urban Tennis Foundation.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
I want to see naive, but what is pickleball? What is pickleball?
Okay.
I'm asking a question. Some people probably like me. What is pickleball?
Well, uniquely, pickleball it's very similar to tennis, except the court is much smaller, and you actually, rather than using a tennis racket, you have like a paddleball racket, and then rather than using a tennis ball, you use like a wiffle ball that's much thicker. So it's easier to maneuver around the court. It is a rave across the United States. There are facilities that have 32 courts, and you have hundreds of people there a day waiting to play, as well as those that are on the courts. So it is, I would say in the last 3 years, it is a national sport that has really just taken the world by surprise.
And it's especially popular with seniors because there's less running involved, running down the tennis balls.
You have to say seniors. We all know we seniors. Okay.
I'm getting there too, Brenda.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes. I have a question too. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, it is supposed to be pretty good. This should be a wonderful addition to the city, but I have a question relating to the fencing and security. Cassie, or could you put that one rendering of the building looking over the courts up again? Yeah, you can see a fence in here. My question really goes to security. There's no individual fence around the entire set of courts. They're just individual ones around a series of 3 courts each or 2 courts each. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. What's not shown in that rendering for clarity is there is a perimeter fence that goes from that. If you look at that door on the side of the building, yes, that man door, there's a condensing unit out there, AC unit.
Right.
That fence will come and it will wrap around and it will tie into the fencing that's around the pickleball courts. But you're correct. So this center concrete kind of viewing area, that will be secured. So around the other side of the building, there will also be another fence. And these are shown on the more detailed site drawings. It's just these are preliminary. In fact, the ink is still wet on them. So sure, some of those details aren't shown on here, and it's kind of an artist's rendering, if you will. So the detailed site plans that we submitted, Mr. Clark, would be the drawings that would show that detailed type of fencing and the security around the site.
That satisfies. I was just concerned. I mean, I hate to say it, but vandalism can be an issue, and we don't want that on such a beautiful new project. So
yeah, and in fact, Mr. Mayor, the fact that the building is elevated does help with that. So those windows that are around the building, especially on the training room side, will be quite elevated. You won't be able to walk up to that window. It'll be another 3 foot higher than a normal window would be.
Real good. So the whole site will be basically secured. Or can be secured as appropriate.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
One other question. Did you gentlemen present to council a couple of years ago?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Did you gentlemen present to council a couple of years ago?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
I thought that was you. Okay, because we was excited, and you made reference then about us old people.
I'm included in that group.
I just wanted to get clarification. I kept looking. I said, I know them from somewhere. Yes, you did. You gave a great
Yes.
presentation at that time as well.
Yeah.
Brenda, you forget you asked what pickleball was then too.
I did. And that's why I asked. I'm like, wait a minute. I asked this question. Is this the same group? Because we were excited at that meeting about it coming. I'm like, okay, I might even get out and run a little bit.
Yes.
And
So
to add
between,
some,
yeah, between then and now, they've done a lot of fundraising, and they're
What they
getting
tell me.
approaching their goal, and so they brought us in, William Kibbe and Associates, to give them some concrete plans so that they can make sure that their pricing is in line, and Spence Brothers has been involved in that process as well. So yeah, we're getting close, and I think come spring we'll see some activity out there.
and the game is named after a dog named Pickle.
But
Seriously.
Correct.
Oh, is that
Yep,
right?
you're correct, Mr. Nash. Yep.
that's okay, Doug. When it opens up, I just want to play pickleball with you. So I can wear you out, show you how the old folks do it. Now,
It sounds like we need to hit up Mr. Hausbeck for some naming rights.
There you go.
Mr. Wheeler, I have a question. Did I hear a date for anticipated breaking of ground?
Yeah, of course, it's contingent on the successful conclusion of the fundraising. But yeah, we're looking at spring construction.
And about what would the duration of the construction period be?
I think we pegged it at maybe 9 months. So we would probably be open real late fall or the next spring. So realistically, probably we would start in spring of 2021 and be ready to open everything up in spring of 2022.
Oh,
Does that jive with what I think Brian's on the call, if he can unmute?
Yeah. Hey, Jay, thanks. If it takes us 9 months, I might get fired. So I think we'll be better than that.
You think we'll be open in the fall of next year?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, is there a motion on this site plan?
I make a motion that we pass case number J 200041 for approval.
Second, Dallas.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Doug. So now we got to play.
You got it. You got it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, we got to vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, we still have to vote.
We have to vote.
Okay. There's no other discussion on the motion to approve site plan J 200041. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding an ordinance making changes and additions to the regulations on the use of shipping containers or storage containers. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this case? Is there anyone here? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. There's always a delay here.
That's all right. Bill Georges from Mike's Record in Saginaw.
Go ahead.
Okay, a couple of things. I talked to Bob early in the development of this, and a couple of things have kind of come up in discussing it with a couple of people. We do store shipping containers at our facility in Saginaw on Hess, and we're in the M2 zone. So according to the ordinance as proposed, it shouldn't be an issue for us to continue to store them short term. And what we do is we store them for rental companies. Scientific Brake and Equipment Company on East Genesee, or I'm sorry, 315 West Genesee. I think a couple of representatives are on for their company as well tonight listening in. They lease containers and we relocate them. And then A1 Mobile Storage and Leasing, they have a location on Holland, just west of Genesee, and they also store them short term for their rentals, and we relocate and move some storage containers for them. In addition, we do also sell some containers, and there are a couple of things that have kind of come up from some of our customers that either buy or use the containers. And I just wanted to get them out before the committee for thought and consideration. One of the reasons some residential owners want a storage container rather than a storage shed or something like that is for security. The container is much higher security than a wood shed, and while it may not be as aesthetically pleasing, does afford a high security option for them. And unfortunately, with the police agency, the local police, not being able to respond to property crimes, securing your lawnmower or yard equipment is important, especially on a lot of houses that don't have garages in the city. So that was one of the reasons. I know we've sold a couple of containers that people have put in the city on their private property or on their residential property to use as a storage shed. And that's kind of the primary reason for that. The other thing is there are a couple of places that we know that use them regularly that have them on like a long-term rental. A couple of the tire shops and a couple of the auto repair shops use them to store both new and takeoff tires prior to disposal. And part of that is because of the requirements for mosquito control. They don't like piles of tires outside. It's a health and safety issue in terms of mosquito breeding. And so they keep the tires inside. So, you know, I think several places along East Genesee, we've got A1 Tire, Mike's Tire, Dan's Tire, and I think most of them have some sort of either storage trailer or storage container that they're using to store those tires, like I say, prior to disposal to comply with like the health and safety type issues that mosquito control is concerned about. One of the things that I did express to Bob is that some of the other municipalities are allowing the small containers, which is an 8 foot by 20, and that's about 160 square feet. And then the other standard size is the 8 by 40, which is 320. That some surrounding townships have allowed the 8 by 20, 160 square foot, to be used in residential settings in lieu of a shed on property, provided it meets the appropriate setbacks and isn't unsightly or anything else. And they've allowed those in residential settings in lieu of a shed. So I don't know if that may be something that could be considered for those folks. And then the last thing that I had was in the time zone, or in the time table in the ordinance, which would be section 153-491 for use. The 90-day period, I think, is probably good. Bob and I talked about that. He was looking at 30 to 60 days for commercial applications, but a lot of like Rite Aid, Walgreens, those type of places, there's a lot of short-term rental that goes on before the holidays. So when they get their Christmas stock in October or November, they need overflow storage, and those usually come in October, November, and they're taken out late December or early January. And the only other thing from like a residential perspective, where it says 30 days in the residential zone, in the event of a fire or something like that, I don't know if it would fall under construction related, but if there's a fire or flood, these are used a lot for people for household goods during those type of situations. And after the floods in Sanford, we delivered a large number of storage containers into the residential zones that stayed for several months. and I don't know if that would fall within the construction place or not, just because of, some of it wasn't construction, some of it was just, protecting their household goods while, their house was dried out and stuff like that. And not that we've seen the flooding in the city so much, but we do have some occasional sewer backups and things like that. So those were just ideas and thoughts that I had when I reviewed it, and I just wanted to get it out there in terms of consideration where, from a safety and security perspective, would we allow as a community a storage container instead of a shed, and a wooden shed if somebody wanted that, again, provided that it's not unsightly. And then the other thing is the security issue for, protecting one's personal property, that a high security container really provides that a wood shed doesn't. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
This is Stan Telezan. I'm the rental manager for Scientific Brake and Equipment Company, and Bill George is running Mike's Wrecker, as he said, does deliver many of our containers to customers all over the state. Of course, we're only dealing with units that are here in the city of Saginaw, but I concur with some of the comments that Bill has made regarding the length of time that this proposal sets forth. We have many customers, both residential and commercial, that need to have their storage container in place much longer than either the 90 days for businesses or 30 days for residential. Bill mentioned the floods in the Sanford area and such. We continually prepare and send out containers for restoration companies, Wolgast and many others. And of course, many of that is out of the city of Saginaw, but typically when there's a fire or water damage and the house has to be, the household goods have to be taken out of the house for the period of time where the house is restored. It is typically 60 to 90 days as a rule. 30 days is far, far too short. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Russ Lindman. I reside at 110 Braley Street in Saginaw, just off Gratiot behind Tony's Restaurant. I've lived here at my home since 2002, and there's a pawn shop that's located a block away, and repeatedly over the years since I've lived here, my garage has been broken into 5 or 6 times, and various items taken over to the pawn shop. About 10 years, maybe 11, 12 years ago, somewhere in that range, I purchased a storage container behind my home. It was a law firm when I bought my home, an apartment building. Now it's a single family home. It was zoned residential RO1, residential office 1. Some point the zoning was changed to just residential 1. But my container sits on in my paved parking lot backyard. And, I keep the area maintained. I've never not. And I've actually, because I'm dedicated to the neighborhood, I grew up on the one block over. I've been here since 1977. My family still lives here, and I bought properties on my block and across the street next to the Hamilton Home Bakery. And I don't know if this will allow for me to be, grandfathered in. I would hate to lose the only secure storage I have outside. Aside from tearing down the garage that is original to my house, which is 100 years old this year, I'd hate to have to do that to build something else that would be more, secure to modern standards. But my storage container is a smaller one. It's a 20-foot long one, and I find it invaluable as a resident in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to comment on this case?
Bill Georges once again. I heard Stan, and one of the things, Stan, I'm not sure if you know what your zoning is for Scientific Break at 315 West Genesee. I looked at the zoning map, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to differentiate the shades of blue to see if you're in an industrial zone or if you're in B2. I didn't know that, but I don't know if someone else from the city might be able to tell you, because I know A1 Storage on Holland, they're in M2 as we are, but I think that the your parcel might be B2, and I don't know if that would preclude you, you know, as a automotive repair slash truck installation, if that would be problematic for you. So I don't know if that would be potentially a problem.
Do I mute?
He's muted. You're muted.
That's better. Sorry. Bill, I had some communication with Robert Golan earlier in the month, and he indicated that our particular business at 314 West Genesee is zoned RMU-RC. And believe me, I had to look that up because I had no idea what that meant. But apparently it is a regional mixed use and regional commercial, which favors the auto industry. He did say that this particular zoning district normally would not allow the sale, lease, or storage of these units. However, since we have been engaged in this activity back since 1994, when we began renting containers, so that's 26 years. He said we would be grandfathered in and we can continue to operate as we already have.
I'm sorry to interrupt. My name is Russ Lindman again. The one thing I forgot to mention is at my home, I am adjacent to Tony's restaurant, and I place my container in a certain configuration to block the noise, and the smells somewhat, and the view up to the dumpster at Tony's and their grease dumpster. So it's the view from the second floor is blocked somewhat, so I don't have to when I look out my windows, I don't have to see those unpleasant items. But thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to comment on this case? Hearing none, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Dallas, so move.
Support.
Motion to close the public hearing has been made and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. Now we need a motion to approve the proposed changes and additions to the ordinance making changes to storage containers and shipping containers.
Move approval of the proposed ordinance.
Support. Jones.
Motion has been made and supported to approve the proposed ordinance. Is there any discussion?
Yes. When we first started talking about this, the young man Russell said the same thing, and so did Mr. Stan. The same thing I was saying. When it comes to those storage bins, they are secure. They're even promoting them on TV. And so I had questions and concerns now, and I still have some concerns because, as Russell said, people are actually getting them because they want to have safer storage. So is there any kind of way that, I know that Bob has put a lot of work into this, but is there any kind of way that we can extend, or, I mean, because remember I said it out loud. Unless I tear down somebody's fence that's been up there for years, and like I said, they're advertising on TV. So I guess the question is to Bob. So Bob, my question is to you and Cassie. I'm not totally against you sold me on that, but these three gentlemen have brought up some valid points. I mean, what would we have to do to get this to where it's comfortable for everyone?
Well,
Don't be quiet, y'all.
If I may, Brenda, if I can actually respond. First of all, I understand the concerns that were raised, but I don't think we're ever going to satisfy everybody. These are certainly more secure, but they're also unsightly, particularly in residential neighborhoods. They do not fit in residential neighborhoods. They're not buildings. They have features that inherently detract from any efforts by neighbors to maintain sightly homes and so on. So that was the reason it was originally brought to us in the first place, that people were using these in a way that was difficult to maintain any of our zoning requirements in a way that protected the public. So I understand your question to Bob. I'm not sure, is it a question of more time, or is it a question of, size? There's no way we're going to ever satisfy everybody, because you have a lot of residential people who would never want these next door. And that's the concern. So I have a couple, just a typo questions, but in response to your question to Bob, I guess, Bob, if you can answer it, I'd like to hear the answer, but I am concerned that there's no way we're going to satisfy everybody.
Well, I think a couple of things. So when we were talking earlier about residential, they're placing these in residential zones because of a flood or because of fire and that sort of thing, then that would be deemed construction. So they would have up to a year to keep those in their on their property, and not and then they would also, there would not be a permit required for those. And likewise, if there are, so if you look at the timetable, they are allowed to have those for up to 30 days, and then they can renew them 3 more times. Likewise, businesses are the same way. So for example, a Rite Aid, if they wanted to do inventory changes, they would be able to have that up to 90 days and then renew it for another 90 or renew it another 90 at some time later within that 12-month period. So I would tend to agree that it's not easy to please everyone in this regard, and so that's kind of why we have these public hearings, is to hear comments about that.
So that's fine with me. But I'm saying, if people have it already, are they going to be grandfathered in? Because from what I heard Russell say, he didn't just get his. He's had his for a while. So I guess that's a question. Are we grandfathering in? And the other piece of this to me is, once again, I understand all of this is temporary. I'm just saying, what I put on my property should be okay as long as I'm keeping it up. And I know that we can't please everybody, and I'm not trying to please everybody. I'm asking questions like Russell. Russell is a citizen who has a shed on his property. I know that we could probably grandfather him in, but what if there's anybody else? I mean, are we going to allow people, or are we going to say, you got to move? Okay, because I just heard him say about a garage he had a garage, but they kept breaking into the garage. So I don't mean to be combative, and I'm really not trying to be combative with the committee either. I'm just asking the question, taking off my council hat, putting it into a residence, to a citizen. So, you know, from what I'm hearing, they get these extensions, 90 days up to 50 days, temporary, and then you can do it 2 times a year. Okay. So then this one for 30 days. What constitutes this? Is this just the zoning area that they're in? That they can get it for 30 days, then you got to get another 30 days, and you can get another 30 days and another 30 days. Semantic wise, I'm just saying, when people ask us, I'm scared to tell people the truth. That's where I am. So, Bob, I know you did a lot of work in this, and you know I was the main one hollering about these. So, okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone because I'm only one vote.
I have a question about the grandfathering issue. Mr. Inman is here today and has made a case for, seems to me, why he should be grandfathered. But there are other people around in this community who may be in similar situations. So what I'm wondering is, and I don't know the answer to this, when you pass this ordinance, is anybody who had an existing storage container before the ordinance was passed, are they automatically grandfathered, or is it a case-by-case basis?
Amy, you got an answer for that?
I would ask that Bob chime in as well, but I would think it might be a prior non-conforming use.
Yes, that's the way we would look at it. So, in other words, yes, it would be grandfathered in if they have an existing one on their property.
Okay, with that, I feel a little bit better because if we had to ask this gentleman to move his stuff, we're now dictating to him. And so I feel a little bit better with that one. But you know, I still say, if it's more secure than the garage, why can't we have them? But once again, I'm only one vote.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I do have just a typographical question for Mr. Gallen. He can clear it up very easily, I'm sure. Mr. Gallen, on section 153-347, 5. I'll wait. When you get it, let me know.
Okay.
That is the only place through the entire ordinance where the language doesn't say temporary buildings or portable storage containers. Was that intentional, or should the word buildings be in there like it is on all the other editions?
It was intentional because we're talking really about storage containers.
Okay, so if it was intentional, then I'm fine with it. It just caught me because it was not consistent with what was there elsewhere. But thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to approve the ordinance making changes and additions to the regulation on the use of shipping containers or storage containers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. The motion has been approved. Thank you. Now we go to old business, and the first item is an update on the marijuana establishment process.
Okay, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit and see if you have any questions. I did include a marijuana establishment checklist that Bob and I have put together to make so that hopefully this whole approval process will be as simple for developers as possible. We primarily, Bob, have been getting a ton of calls, so we're going to be pretty busy with this new with this procedure. and that includes all of you. So I wanted to make sure that you all understand a little bit of what your power is and what your role is in approving these businesses. So you all saw the ordinance, and we'll make sure, like every other project, that we do the communication, we make sure you understand that they're meeting all regulations. The planning commission is what is recommended as the first step for them, and they have to get a special approval. So that means that we are going to have to notify every property owner and resident within 300 feet of all of these potential establishments. They have to also have a public notice go out, and we will have a public hearing. So we will be able to have anybody from the public come and comment on these projects. They have to go through a full site plan review with construction documents, engineering documents, everything. And so then you guys will be the first stop where they come for the approval. They will then have to go to the clerk's office and get a license, which includes a lot. We did not include a full list, and you don't have the application from the clerk's office, but essentially that is going to be one of the biggest portions where they make sure everything is registered for this business with the state. Everything that the state requires of them, the city is going to require to see as well. So these are legitimate businesses. They have set up everything to make sure that it will all be done legally with all of the state regulations. That was pretty much what I wanted to tell you. Do you guys have any questions?
No, I think it's a great thing, Cassie, but I hate to be thinking of become the typo police, but I got a couple questions that you might need to clarify.
Okay.
On 15, that'd be 215, 2A, B, C15, I'm sorry, 2C15, the second page. You have that?
Oh, okay, yeah, yep.
Okay. On 15, the last word of the first line of stops, what is that intended to be? Stops.
Yeah, you can remove the E.
Yep, stops.
Okay.
Sorry.
It just would have been really confusing if someone saw that, and I didn't know what it meant. All right. The second one is on 17. There's two parts. The impact on adjacent property shown. What is meant by that? Is there some kind of explanation of what they have to show?
So all of these items are actually from the list that anyone comes before the Planning Commission with a site plan review. And the impact on the adjacent properties would have to do with parking, drives, screening, that sort of thing.
Could that just be clarified by saying such as adjacent structures, drives, and the other part was confusing in the parking in 100 feet. I'm not sure what you meant there. Was that within 100 feet or?
So essentially when we get a site plan, they show the adjacent properties. So they show within 100 feet everything that is around them.
Okay, it just isn't very clear. I mean, I don't know if it's worth changing or not, but it's really, someone who just looks at it's not going to understand that. I suppose they could call you and then you have to explain it.
Yeah, this is the exact list we give to every developer. Everybody submitting a site plan. But yeah, we could go into more detail.
I'm not sure you need a lot of detail, just maybe something that makes it more clear. That's all. Anyway, but that's it. That's all I have. I like it. It's a great thing to be able to hand out.
I have a question on the same page, number 15 at the end. No, I'm wrong. Number 16. Topograph. What is that?
Topography.
Right.
So that is like showing the slope of the land. So topography lines, when they're close together, it's a steeper hill. When they're farther apart, it's a flat. So that kind of shows like the way that the water essentially will move on a property.
Thank you. I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, is this even a word? Okay. Thank you. Learn something new every day.
Yep.
Any other questions on the marijuana establishment procedure? Okay, the next item on old business is an update on the political sign situation.
Yeah, so I opened up a whole can of worms when I brought this to you. I had no idea about the ruling by the Supreme Court regarding Reed versus Gilbert. I've spoken with Amy, and the fact sheet that was provided to you was done by the Michigan Municipal League to talk about these kinds of things. In essence, you can't treat a temporary sign any differently based upon the content. So, for example, a real estate sign versus a political sign has to be treated in the same way. Now, we can look at those from the standpoint of limiting the size and limiting the how long it can be out and that sort of thing, but we have to treat them all the same. So I guess what I'm saying is that at some point I am going to bring back to you a proposed change in our sign ordinance. And it is probably going to be a complete redo because we might as well take care of everything within that ordinance while we're at it. So just wanted, this is more of an FYI for you.
Stay tuned.
So Bob, I got a question. So are you talking about making the sign smaller, a standard size, how long they can be out? I mean, because that's my concern. I'm a politician. And I was told when I first ran, them signs had to be up by a certain time. And now we got signs from August still up, all in my neighborhood. And so for me, if you don't come to the sign, I put it in the trash. So
Brenda, when you first ran, that probably held true, but that Supreme Court decision that came out changed everything.
I've not been in this stuff that long, Amy. Okay,
you've been around a few years, so
yeah. I've been
but basically, that Supreme Court decision said if you have to read the sign to determine if the regulation fits, the regulation is probably illegal.
Oh, I'm okay with that. I'm gonna follow the rules. I'm gonna get my signs up.
Any other questions, comments on the political sign or the sign issue?
No, but I think I just comment. I think Bob can come back with something as far as size, the length of time. There's things that we can still have on a sign that will work. So I think Bob come up with something that'll be workable.
Okay. One question I would have is placement of political signs or any kind of sign in the public right of way between the street and the sidewalk.
So that is illegal.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's a temporary sign or a regular sign. You can't put them in the public right of way.
Pretty wide scale violation of that one.
Yeah.
So what are we doing about it? Because we do have some. So what are we doing?
I think you can call inspections to some degree, and to the extent that they have staff available, they can go out and remove those signs if it's city public right of way. More often than not, what I tend to see is that vacant land bank property seems to get stuffed with everybody's signs. So you can call the land bank in the same situation. If they have available staff to go remove them, they can do that.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna call. I will
Yeah.
follow me.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comment. Is anybody here from the public to make a comment?
Hi, this is Russ Lindman again. I just appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to all the comments I made at that public hearing. I appreciate it and thank you.
Thank you for being here. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All
Dallas.
those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion, the meeting has adjourned.